should not be trying to hold somebody accountable if you can't actually give an account of them. You like in order to hold somebody accountable, you should know who they are, what they're like, what their personalities like. Have a have insight into patterns that have happened, that have happened in their life. Then you can go to them and say, "I've noticed this about you, and it doesn't seem to be working for you." With these internet people that just come in and make these blind judgments, or you're a single mother, so you did something wrong. Like it to me, it doesn't hold any weight because one, they don't know what they're talking about. Two, they don't know your history.
And
But
so
on the only
that
thing mistaken I'll say is that people feel like they're qualified to hold you accountable or shame you. Like sometimes it's like, who the fuck are you? And I'm sorry for my language, but it's like a lot of these men on these channels and pages be trying to hold you accountable and don't know not a damn thing about your life. They don't
talk
know
about
what's
it.
going on. They want to come and shame you. I'm holding you accountable for blah, 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 blah. I'm shaming you because you need to be shamed. It's like you don't know that person. So I do agree that if you are going to hold somebody accountable, if you are going to bring some sense of shame, at least be somebody who actually care about that person where you're doing it out of love and not trying to down that person and make them feel bad and shame them to the point where they're just a bad person. You have ill intentions on why you're saying this to this person. Maybe you're projecting something, you know, from your childhood. Maybe you're mad at your mom for being a single mom. So now you're taking that anger on another woman you don't know and you're telling her all these things you wish you told your mom.
Well, I don't like this idea of holding people accountable, especially the way that I see it being used around it. What I keep blurring out, especially the way that that we use it around the internet, because one, you should not be trying to hold somebody accountable if you can't actually give an account of them. You like in order to hold somebody accountable, you should know who they are, what they're like, what their personalities like. Have a have insight into patterns that have happened, that have happened in their life. Then you can go to them and say, "I've noticed this about you, and it doesn't seem to be working for you." With these internet people that just come in and make these blind judgments, or you're a single mother, so you did something wrong. Like it to me, it doesn't hold any weight because one, they don't know what they're talking about. Two, they don't know your history, and they may be well intentioned in principle to say like, maybe it's not good to be a single mother. Yeah, the intention is good in that, but until you know somebody's individual story and all the variables that come into play, and we are notorious for doing this. We always we uh we always take context and mistaken that with justification. So whenever we try and tell somebody all the factors that led to where we are in life, we always get the same thing. Well, that's not an excuse. You should have done this. You should have done that. When a lot of times we're not looking for an excuse. We're trying to say these are the aspects of my life. This is why I turned. This is why I'm in the spot that I'm in now. And then you're in a place where you can actually start doing things differently when people understand that instead of making judgments of you based on that. But these internet people, it's just they take talking points and they run with it when their lives clearly don't match. I watch a lot of these relationship gurus. Most of them are not married. I don't see any kind of ring on their finger. They're telling guys what to do and what not to do, and that's a clear sign that somebody is a fraud, because you cannot tell a man to move this way, to behave this way without knowing their individual story. We are all unique. We all think differently, process things differently. We need to understand how we do that on a fundamental level first before we decide to start giving advice. Even therapists, I don't typically give advice. I walk alongside somebody where they're at. I'm sharing their pain with them and giving them an outside view of what's going on. Those are the things that help people change. If I just come in and say, do this, don't do this, you're not going to really learn anything other than to stop a single behavior. But walking alongside someone and knowing their story makes all the difference in people turning around and kids growing up with maturity and have good heads on their shoulders. Like it's a lot of stuff that we're just inherently missing in our community.
Wow.
I agree.
I agree. It's a lot of relationship gurus out there. What about the married ones? That's you know,
There's
giving
married
women.
ones.
There's some married ones that you
Ooh.
know they still I don't know.
Well, so that's also the problem with these gurus, is because if you are going to be on a platform and you're giving advice and you're married and you're telling people what to do and what not to do, your life better be a perfect reflection of success.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to share your life and share where you are in life and the problems that you have and the good things that you have, then you have nothing to stand on in terms of telling somebody else how they should move. Because I can look at your marriage and say your marriage sucks, and and I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
They just feel like because they're married, they're qualified to tell people what to do. And it's like, we don't know what the dynamics of your marriage even looks like.
Yeah, being married is not a qualification.
I'm telling you.
I don't think, I just don't, in general, I just don't like the idea of people giving direct marriage advice. If you are going to walk alongside them and let them know what you're seeing, because the biggest change happens when you have an awareness of something that's not working for you. Because that's when you start working to change things in your life, when you realize for yourself this is a problem. So for somebody to just come in and arbitrarily tell you, no, this is what a real marriage looks like, this is how men are supposed to move, they're usually
I
insecure.
definitely experienced that. Like I am married. I will give advice, but not advice like you need to do this. I preface it with, this is what works in my marriage, because I realize that how I move, the things that I bring into my marriage as my individual personality, my upbringing, the experiences that I have, all of those things are going to have shaped me into who I am. My husband, his experience, all of those things, and we're kind of commingling those things to make our marriage work. So in giving advice, you may not have had those same experiences, the same upbringing, all of the same things that make our marriage the way that it is. So what I do in mine may not necessarily work for yours. So if I say something, it's, well, in my marriage, we do blah, 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 or these are the things that we did and we had to work on. A lot of times I think when people are giving advice, it's a general statement that should apply to everybody. And it doesn't all the time. Now, of course, there's some key factors that are baseline that I would say, but just in general, like when we're having these conversations and you have a lot of, and I know people get mad, but right now as women, we're talking to you to get advice in terms of from a man's perspective, as well, is that is this thing about the idea of the men in these spaces. And I'm not going to say all men, because the men that I'm around don't behave the same way that I see in these spaces. This attitude of feeling like they can't coexist or cooperate with a woman. It has to be, I'm the lead and what I say goes. Or this idea of, I have to be the one to break these women down because they think too highly of themselves. It's just this mindset. And so I guess I would like to know, where does that come from? Where is this idea? And I'm going to say in a Black community, Black men, because I'm going to be honest, men outside of my outside of the Black race that I've interacted with don't necessarily have that same mindset. I mostly hear it from Black men.
Yeah.
So where do you think that idea of the dominance, and I have to control, I need you to submit, we can't be cooperative, we can't be a partnership, like where do you think that comes from?
I think a lot of that came from the media and how it portrayed what it means to be a man and what protection and provision look like in our communities. And a lot of it came out in a very toxic way, like going back to that money, power, and respect type of thing. So now we have ideas of respect that look different than maybe the outside world. To us, respect looks like you better not come on my block. You better not talk out of turn to me. You better not raise your voice at me. I'm always, I'm the man. I like what I say goes. A lot of those kind of toxic ways of looking at things come into play, but also we have to also realize that there is a place for some of that. It's based on the makeup of your marriage. If you are inside of a marriage where you are the primary breadwinner and you believe that you are the head of your household and that you are accountable to God for the functioning of your family, for your wife doing well, for your kids doing well, then that type of person may have a higher sense, may have more of a commanding presence, may be a little bit more no nonsense because they have that strong conviction to where it's like, I'm accountable to God for what I do with my family. So I'm going to make sure we're moving in the way that I believe is best. You have the other ones, some of the other guys that believe that, okay, well, I'm going to work. My wife's going to work. We're going to be equal partners inside of this. Is, wife rules the house. Whatever she says goes. I just make sure I bring the money home and let her do whatever she has to do. But there are marriages that are made up that way. I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with either side, just because the way our society is now and the way our communities are now, you have to have two people making two breadwinners inside of the house. So there's going to be certain sacrifices in terms of power and respect that you're going to have. But if you are blessed that you can be and that's what a lot of men actually miss out on, is a lot in the red pill spaces. They don't understand all the responsibility that comes with the power. That is not solely just the finances. You literally are taking care of the lives of your family. That's so much more than just having the power to say, do this, not that. I think we really don't have an understanding of just what the weight of that actually is.
And it's so crazy that you said, because when you were talking, I was thinking that too. I think a lot of times what ends up happening is, I do think that these people exist. I think that in the men in some cultures, they are the man and these women are under them, and that works for them. And they're seeing these things. But the problem is they're not seeing what these men are bringing. Like, these men are not going in half with their women. They're
Exactly.
not, you can't be the boss and not be the boss, so
Right.
And so women are now, so what happens is you try to take this 50-50 thing where you're not the full provider, and then she feels like, well, I'm helping you be the boss, so I should have the say. So what they're getting wrong is you got to do all of it to get all of it.
Right.
Have that understanding in the beginning, because it's perfectly fine for you to say, we're going to go 50-50 on the bills, but as the wife, I'm going to give my check to my husband and he's going to take care of the family. That's fine if that is what your core values are. But
it ain't
to say that this is inherently what it has to be, there's a lot of women that are like that. And
were like that. Well, different generation, but they were the breadwinners in their homes. But my uncles were the head, and they made money, and they just, he decided, like,
because a lot of good comes with that too. Because you also have to think that your husband is still going to be the person that makes sure that he maintains the house, that if somebody ever breaks into the house, he's the one that's going to jump in front and take that bullet. There's a certain level of security that comes with knowing that even if I lose my job, my husband is going to fill in the gaps. He'll do whatever it is that he needs to do to keep the family afloat. And when you have somebody like that, it makes it so much easier for him to function when he has a submissive wife that doesn't believe that washing dishes and doing laundry and playing supportive type roles, feeling like that's anything less than.